What images does France conjure up for you? Now, for me, there are beautiful houses and gardens of all kinds, but also glorious markets, street cafes, and some very formative experiences. When I was 19, I came to the south of France and lived in Aix-en-Provence for 6 months. And ever since then, I've loved France and everything to do with it. And I want to share that passion for the country with you through its gardens. I'll discover what their gardens reveal about French history, their love of food, the soil, and the arts, and why they value order and structure so highly. I'll be travelling the byways of the French countryside. This is what a deux chevaux was made for. Meeting local gardeners.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Monty. Bonjour, José.
Tasting the very best of their harvest.
Sometimes this job is really good.
Getting to turn on huge fountains.
I can hear the water.
And trying to find out what makes French gardens, and indeed the French, unique. Today, I'm looking into how the famous French love of food translates into their kitchen gardens. It's a busy weekday market in Aix-en-Provence. Beneath the shade of the plane trees, the stalls are rich with delicious-looking fruit and vegetables.
Oh, I love a cherry. Bonjour. Des cerises, c'est combien?
4,80.
Hein? Une demi-kilo, s'il vous plaît.
This is not just for tourists.
Merci.
Unlike the UK, where we buy more of our food from supermarkets, about a third of French people still buy their fruit and veg from markets like these, where the display is all part of the shopping experience.
So look at that. That's just beautiful. Well, wouldn't you just want to have that at home?
Merci.
40 years ago, when I first came here, it was completely transforming. I'd grown up in a Britain where the food was remorselessly dreary and regarded as a bodily function rather than one of life's great pleasures.
So to come here and be exposed to the market and all these incredible vegetables and taste and the smell of it all, and to eat food that I'd only heard about, and then to connect that with the vegetables that I was already growing at home and realize that perhaps I could grow these too. And the connection between what I was doing with my hands in the soil and what I was eating was life-changing.
Now, all these years later, I want to see how these fabulous fruit and vegetables are grown.
On coupe, et on lève. That's it. On rebouche. Asperge blanche.
Right.
The story of the French kitchen garden begins in medieval monasteries and unfolds via the decorative vegetable gardens of the Grand Chateau to modern-day rural smallholdings. 1 in 2 French people regularly buy local produce because the attachment to a particular region and its soil still has real meaning. I'm getting around in a little 2CV. Now, of course, it's fun to drive, but in fact, a 2CV is exactly the right car for the job.
They were developed before the last war as an agricultural vehicle, and they were designed to take a farmer and his family with a load of eggs to market across rutted, ploughed ground without damaging the produce. That was the important thing. They had to be reliable and tough. And so it seems to me it's the ideal car to drive around France looking for that connection between growing and gardens, food and the land.
My first port of call is in the rugged landscape of the Cevennes. It's a remote and largely impoverished area, and many years ago I made a long walk right across it. But today I'm here to visit a nunnery, the Monastère de Sonon. which is a first for me.
The reason I wanted to come to a monastery was because the root of vegetable growing started in the monastic tradition, where nuns and monks would grow vegetables and herbs for the kitchen and also for medicine. And also the process of doing it was a kind of prayer, it was devotion. So that tradition actually has continued through to the present day, but it starts, or started, in the monasteries. It's very difficult to contact them because they don't speak, so I can only ring them once a week, so I hope to God they're there. I must remember not to blaspheme. Mustn't say hope to God or stuff like that. Can I hear footsteps? Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Je suis Monty.
Pardon?
Monty, je m'appelle Monty.
Bonjour.
Bon, bonjour.
Entrez.
Merci.
Today is one of the rare days when they break their silence to receive visitors. There's been a monastery on this site since 1300, and the Mother Superior, who spoke perfect English, showed me around.
Our vegetable garden is very, how can we say that, modest. And we can't really say that it is exemplary on the aesthetic point of view. Excuse me, I'll just grasp that as well.
So how many of you work in this vegetable garden?
There are 16 nuns living here, and as well as a rigorous regime of prayer, they run a winery. And they still manage to be almost entirely self-sufficient.
So you say it's modest. It's a big area. I mean, it's a big vegetable garden.
It is, it is.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but we are a lot of people eating here. That's why.
Well, a lot of people eating is one thing. You have to have a lot of people working.
As well.
Yes.
Yes, that's
So
true.
these are courgettes, are they, or squashes, or pumpkins?
Yes, pumpkins and courgette. We have two kinds.
yeah.
Everything is sort of like mixed up.
You've got a lot.
Yes,
So
we
what's
do. We
the
have about 1 ton production
1 ton
of pumpkins per year.
What do you do with them?
We eat them during the whole winter.
Okay, sorry.
Ask a silly question.
I love all vegetables, so I'm not bored. I'll look at anything. It
You look at
fascinates me.
anything?
Yeah, no,
So here we have our cucumbers.
Right, so cucumbers, you see, growing so lushly and so well outside. We struggle to grow cucumbers outside. Would it be very rude if I cut one and tasted it?
Oh, not at all.
Whoops, I'm dropping my phone. I have my glasses, so everything always drops out my pocket. I do it at home the whole time. So, looks nice. Oh, smell that. It's just
Yes, refreshing.
all cucumber refreshing. So this, it's good. It's not quite ripe, but it's good. Do you want some?
Yes, I would. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Not quite ready. It's a little bit bitter. I'm afraid I've wasted it because it should have been left for a little bit longer.
Don't worry.
I suspect that this monastic scene has changed little since its medieval inception and has the same workmanlike mixture of fruit, vegetables and medicinal herbs that set the model for all subsequent French kitchen gardens.
This is for real. They do not grow vegetables because they like the experience, because it peps up their diet. They grow vegetables because that is what they eat. And if they don't grow, they don't eat. And their choice of vegetables is influenced by that. So an awful lot of things that will store well, a lot of things that grow well here, they can't afford to play at it in any sense of the word. So there is an edge to this, a kind of really deep survival seriousness, which yet they seem to go through with extraordinary grace. But these are very hard-working, efficient, busy people.
A bell marks the start of the brief 20 minutes break allocated for dinner, and I join the nuns to share their homegrown meal. The food is simple but good, although alas, it's not a saint's day, so no wine. and everyone tucks in with gusto, accompanied by a devotional reading. The highly practical medieval monastic gardens led to the development of the potager, the French style of kitchen gardening, where looks matter as much as the quality or quantity of food that's grown. And I'm visiting a beautiful example in the Luberon, a couple of hours east of the Cevennes. After the unmanicured harshness of the Cevennes, the Luberon seems more affluent, although the sun is still scorching, and my little car isn't made for long, hot journeys.
Classic 2CV experience, caught between two gears.
I've come to the vineyard of Val-Joannis, near Pertuis, to visit its ornate potager, where flowers elegantly combine with fruit and vegetables.
That is a healthy, happy hollyhock. Just shows you what they like. Lots and lots of sunshine.
The word potager comes from the French potage, meaning soup, and originally referred to the patch where the ingredients were grown for the bowl of soup that was the mainstay of most people's midday meal. But this has evolved to become something much more elaborate and as meticulously controlled as the vines that grow all around the garden here at Val-Joannis.
All the skills and discipline of growing and training vines can be seen in this garden. You have oak trees trained and growing as very tight, strict triangles. In fact, there's some oak trees over there, which are just thin little columns with finials on top and joining in lattice work. And the whole thing, the whole garden, is a display and expression of the skills of man in controlling plants. And that really is the root of the French potager. It's controlling food production. So not only it looks good, but it does what it's told.
So this garden takes the idea of a monastic garden and then turns it on its head. Rather than existing to grow enough food to see you through winter, it is an ostentatious demonstration of wealth, power, and taste. This style of gardening began in the north of France, but before I head up that way, I want to try and get to grips with the French love of soil.
Okay, let's have a look.
My guide is Arnaud Marie, Val-Joannis' winemaker, or vigneron.
C'est tout à vous?
Oui. Yep.
It's very dry.
This year is very dry.
The key to this respect for the soil is the word terroir, which is an almost mystical combination of soil and place, and gives every wine its distinct local character.
Now the soil here is very dry, bone dry.
Très sec. C'est un mélange principalement d'argile,
D'argile, clay,
clay, de calcaire,
right, calcaire, lime.
lime. Et après, il y a un petit peu de pierre, mais ici, pas trop.
And how important is it for le terroir et le choix des vins avec le sol?
Oui. Qu'est-ce qui est important?
Ça c'est important.
C'est primordial. Ouais,
Oui,
c'est
le first thing.
c'est une obligation.
Oui.
Quand on veut planter une vigne sur un terrain, on est obligé de connaître le sol,
Oui.
le climat et le sol.
You must know the soil, you must know the climate.
Yeah.
And is that something you have to grow up with? Or can you learn it from a book?
Non,
No.
on peut pas là. Ça c'est
Feeling, yeah.
So how does this alchemy of soil, sun, and the vine distill itself into a glass?
Gosh. You see, here we are in Provence. Beautiful day, a fine wine.
Cheers.
Cheers, yes, we say.
Is an elusive concept, but it is at the heart of the French relationship to their food, and I'll be seeing how it applies to growing vegetables and other fruit later.
Your soil is so stony. Yes, we have a lot of stone.
You have a little mess.
Yes, yeah. But that's very good.
But now it's time to leave the sunshine for a while, head north and visit the most famous potager in the world. This is the Chateau of Villandry in the Loire Valley, 500 miles away from Provence and another climate entirely. This garden, which looks very old, was in fact only created just over 100 years ago, based on the notion of what the kitchen garden might have been like when the chateau was in its Renaissance heyday in the 16th century. On my way to find the head gardener, I get distracted and bedazzled by the sheer number of celery seedlings.
7, 38, 39, 40. So there are 40 times 4 trays. That's 160 trays, and each tray takes 20. So that's 3,200 plants. How about that?
I find Laurent in the lovely 18th century greenhouse shaped like an upturned boat, potting up peppers.
So how many plants do you raise here for the potager?
Alors pour le potager dans nos serres, à peu près 70 000 plants.
70,000.
Et puis nous achetons également à peu près le même nombre de plants ou de fleurs.
Of the 140,000 plants, how much is eaten? How much is grown to be eaten?
Alors nous avons un potager décoratif qui n'est pas basé sur l'alimentaire. Donc nous présentons des légumes pour faire un paysage, de la mosaïculture. Donc nous ne pouvons pas cueillir les légumes pour faire des trous dans les massifs, mais par contre nous récoltons, nous pouvons cueillir les poivrons, les aubergines pour donner aux visiteurs et également donner aux gens qui travaillent pour le château.
The produce from this potager is not destined for potage or any other kind of meal. Everything here is for show. In fact, Laurent told me that the vast majority of the vegetables end up on the compost heap, including no less than 30,000 lettuces every year. It's been suggested that in the 16th century it was intended as a display of the exotic plants newly arrived from the Americas, a kind of edible cabinet of curiosities to be proudly displayed to visitors, which is exactly what it is today.
Of course, Villandry has always been popular and very well known, but it became especially popular in Britain in the 1980s, I think, because up until then, the model for all aspiring vegetable growers and social climbers was the Victorian walled garden. And inside that walled garden, you had your vegetables in long rows. And then in the 1980s, Rosemary Veary made the potager really popular, and that word entered into gardening fashionable talk. How's your potager, they would say in Hackney and Islington. And the difference was that you chose your vegetables and you laid them out for decorative purposes. You still ate them and you still wanted to grow them well, but decoration and little box hedges became part of the scene. And of course, the model of all that, the big daddy of all potagers, was here at Villandry.
The potager is only part of a much bigger and wonderful garden at Villandry, but its ornamental rigour sets the tone for the whole place.
This is the herb garden, and even plants like horseradish has had its leaves trimmed off so they're all uniform size and length. And lovage, which in my garden is a great explosion of a plant, reaching 6 foot tall and bursting out all over the place, is marshalled into a sort of tight, orderly battalion. Now, there's no question, to my mind, that Villandry is one of the great gardens of the world. And if you're in France and you have any interest in gardens, come here. But I find the potager disappointing. It leaves me unsettled. And I think that's because function and form have grown too far apart. Where vegetables are not grown to eat at all, something really essential is lost. There's no sense of becoming, of growing, of evolving, and then, of course, the pleasure and excitement of harvest. And if it's all just grown to be a static picture, it's just not enough. And of course, you realize it needn't be vegetables. It could be colored glass or waxworks and have exactly the same effect.
Nevertheless, with its box-hedged beds containing uniform ranks of ornamental vegetables, there are 1,000 gardens around the world, including my own, that owe a direct debt to Villandry.
That's it. They're cresting the wave. Will they get to the top? They're just about to do it. Yes. Oh, gold. Broken. There we are. There are 15 cars behind me.
I'm on my way to a potager near Paris that grows and sells a huge amount of produce, and I think should be much better known. Every year, hundreds of thousands of tourists flock to Versailles, home of France's most flamboyant ruler, Louis XIV. He commissioned the magnificent gardens here, but hardly any of these visitors go just round the corner from the palace to another of Louis's creations, which in its own way is just as extravagant. This is the Potager du Roi at Versailles, made for the Sun King, Louis XIV, in the 17th century, and they've been growing fruit and vegetables here ever since. The place is just huge, covering over 23 acres of walled garden, created to supply the king the fruit and vegetables that he adored. I met up with Antoine Jacobson, who is the current head gardener.
Fruit and vegetables. How many people do you have working?
There are 10 permanent gardeners.
Right. So not that many.
No, not enough.
No. Said he with feeling.
The Potager du Roi is a superb demonstration of one of France's great contributions to horticulture, elaborate pruning, which is based upon the principle of restricting growth whilst keeping as much fruit as possible and making it look as good as possible.
Most of the tree shapes that we have in this garden are 19th century, though there's one just over there that is late 18th century.
Which one? Show me.
Right here.
Oh, this one.
Yes, this one here.
Which you never see in Britain.
In this case, for this shape, the idea is to have as much light getting to the interior as possible, so that we have fruit along all the branches. If we want this branch to have some light, we have to maybe take this one off and leave this one, so that the top ones can continue to be vigorous.
So every branch, every stem needs consideration.
Each tree gets individual attention.
Yeah.
And each tree has to be understood. I consider it often...
Until the end of the 18th century, all pruning was limited by what could be achieved with a single-bladed curved pruning knife, a serpette. But then the secateurs were invented, by a Frenchman, of course.
And it was the curved blade and the fact that you could use just one hand meant you could put your hand in, holding a pair of secateurs, and make a very precise cut on quite floppy material. And that had the effect of refining pruning and changing the shapes that were produced. So by the mid-19th century, people were pruning their fruit into much more ornate and sometimes really fantastical shapes, all because they could. This potager works for me in a way that Villandry doesn't. And this is precisely because it is a working garden. Form and function meet. And nowadays, when the fruit is harvested, it's sold at the garden gates to passers-by. That's what a revolution can do for you. The decorative potager is France's most famous kitchen garden tradition, but the urge to grow one's food is deep in the French psyche. These are the Jardins Ouvriers, or workers' gardens, in one of the poorest districts of Paris. Over 40% of those out of work or retired grow some produce for their table.
As in Britain, the allotment movement followed the drift of workers coming from the country into the cities, bringing with them their skills and experience of growing food. Eliane Davio has had her plot longer than most, and I'm paying her a visit.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. Ah, ben j'ai du monde. Attention de ne pas tomber.
OK.
Mets bien la rampe, hein, parce que sinon
Je
ça
m'appelle
glisse.
Monty.
Ça glisse, ça glisse. Hein.
OK, I won't slip, don't worry.
Bonjour monsieur,
Bonjour.
vous allez
Oui,
bien?
Monty.
Ah,
Oui, oui,
c'est
très bien.
enchanté de venir nous voir quand même, c'est très gentil. Vous pouvez rentrer? C'est pas interdit, hein? Mais je vais vous faire visiter mon jardin. Entrez, entrez,
Et
entrez.
je crois que vous jardiniez ici
Oui.
jusqu'à 40 ans.
Oui, 39 ans je suis là.
39, oui,
ans
quand
je
même.
suis là.
Oui.
J'ai commencé en 1973. Voilà.
C'est changé
Alors, voyez,
depuis ça?
oui. Non, c'est toujours le même.
Toujours le même.
C'est toujours le même.
Ouais.
J'ai toujours...
Et vous,
savez-
vous êtes toujours le même.
Ah ben oui, ben,
vous
moi,
n'avez pas changé.
avec des années en plus. Hein. Attention de pas glisser.
OK.
Regardez tout ce que je cultive. Et toute seule.
Oui,
Personne m'aide. Toute seule. Regardez.
c'est formidable. Et vous avez des fleurs?
Ah, j'ai une partie fleurs.
Oui.
Là, c'est toute ma partie fleurs. Et là, tout potager. Et je fais des légumes pour tout mon été. Pour même des conserves pour l'hiver. Vous voyez?
Fantastique.
Alors ça, c'est des pois en mange-tout.
Oui,
Là, c'est des choux-fleurs.
des choux-fleurs.
Des
bon.
choux-fleurs. Mes tomates. Ça, c'est mes courgettes.
Les courgettes.
Ça, c'est mes
bon.
courgettes. Il faut faire un petit peu de tout. Hein. Je fais de tout. Ça, ce sont des concombres. C'était-
Oui, vraiment, beaucoup de concombres.
Ah oui. Et puis, ça donne. Hein.
Ouais.
Oh, il donne. J'en donne à beaucoup de monde ici. On partage.
Ah, share it.
Je mets la laine. vous
It
savez.
strikes me that Eliane's allotment shares as much with its British counterpart as it does with a French potager.
Ça, c'est bon. Ben,
Merci.
au revoir. Et puis, je vous donne un petit machin.
Oh,
Comme ça.
merci.
Et comme ça, vous serez là-bas, vous penserez au jardin.
Merci, madame.
Comme ça.
Vous êtes très
Eh,
gentille.
vous allez vous régaler.
OK. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Et merci beaucoup.
Merci à vous.
Merci. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Oh, that feels like a jar. Aha. So nice of you. Chutney, I think. Prune. 2011. Prune, actually jam, it looks like. There is something about the Freemasonry of gardeners, and particularly allotmenteers, that transcends nation and age and circumstance, and is just filled with a kind of benign, easy generosity. And of course it makes you feel like a bit of a heel turning up. Well, I want to see what else I've got. And taking gifts and not leaving anything in return. But actually it sows the seeds of something good. Look, there's other pots of jam in there, there's lettuce, there's all kinds of things. And me, a stranger. And actually the goodwill that produces does ripple through, and you know, there's something about allotments and these places that is a sort of lingua franca. It's different. All the flowers and trees are different to any allotment I've seen in England, but you know where you are, you feel at home.
Like most of her fellow allotmenteers, Eliane was not born in Paris. The allotments are the urban version of a tradition that comes from the deep rural heart of France and is nowadays found most readily here, back down in the south.
Ah, voilà le café.
Et voilà, monsieur. Un petit peu de lait avec?
Oui, c'est bien chaud?
Oui.
Merci.
It's easy to underestimate how very different these two cultures are. If the classic kitchen garden of the north is the rich man's decorative potager, Then the south has the productive plot of the paysan, who supports his family off their small piece of land. I've come back to the Cevennes to visit a couple I've got to know who live a 21st century version of this paysan way of life.
One of the things that fascinates me is that, or peasant, is an honourable state in France, whereas if you call someone a peasant in England, you're not really being flattering. And the peasant culture was very simply just living off the land. The peasants were people who fed themselves and fertilised their fields and looked after their animals off the land they had. And it might have been very small indeed. Now, do I go left or right? I think I go left. And that still remains something that the French practice and, more importantly, respect. And all their food culture stems from that you grow your food on the patch of land you have.
This is Le Jardin de Saint-Bouc, hewn by Nicolas and Agnès Brouquin out of rocky land, which was once her grandmother's chicken run. They have a small cafe here and grow almost all the food for it themselves.
Here we are. This is where I'm supposed to go. I think I'm blocking the road. Okay, let's move on. Pardon. Here we are. God, it's grown. Nicolas.
Monty, how are you?
I'm very well and very nice to see you. You've got your tooth.
Yes,
Pardon.
yes. Took a long time. I have them now.
You look very handsome.
Ah, you remember that.
When I came here last time, Nicolas was missing one front tooth and he looked very dashing and piratical.
I was looking like a pirate.
You were, it's exactly what I thought.
How are you, Monty?
Très bien, merci. It's very nice to see you.
Not too hot.
No way, it's hot. It is hot.
It's going to be very hot.
Is it? Is it?
The Cevennes has long attracted an alternative lifestyle, and the garden does have a touch of the hippie about it.
Fast, Nazi.
But there's a real charm in the stone paths that corkscrew around the slopes and the loose, untrammeled planting. The garden nestles into the wild landscape that surrounds it and provides precious shade from the searing sun. But unlike the elaborate decorative potagers of the north, the vegetables are grown separately on a plot down the road. It's 40 degrees today, and yet last winter it went down to -17.
Voilà, a little bit of air.
Here's a breeze, yeah.
A little bit. But now.
And yet Nicolas manages to grow all the fruit and vegetables for his family and for their small cafe. And I want to see how he goes about it.
So here
The
strawberries.
Have they been good this year?
Yes, yes, perfect. Perfect. Strawberry likes cold winter.
Cold winter,
Yeah.
hot summer.
Yeah, that's it.
And water.
And water. So
Can I try a
yes.
strawberry?
Voilà.
that. What variety are these?
That's Marat des Bois.
Marat des Bois.
Marat des Bois.
Ah, oui.
Very good.
Yes, I grow Marat des Bois.
It's one of the
My Marat des Bois are not as good as this. Slightly perfumed. I just look. Your soil is so stony.
Yes, we have a lot of stone.
You have a massive
Yes,
stone.
yeah. But that's very good because it heats the earth,
So the stone heats up.
heats up the earth, and it keeps the water also. We have a natural mulch.
Of stone?
Mulch, one says?
Yes, mulch, yeah, very good.
Stone is very good for mulching.
But quite hard work.
Yes, it's not an easy soil. Yes.
Okay. They used to say where I live, they say the soil will break your back,
Yeah.
maybe break your heart, but never break your bank balance.
Very nice. yeah.
Ah, I like your tools.
Yes.
What do you call this in French?
This is more a sap.
Sap.
Probably. Yes.
we say mattock,
Voilà.
or in fact, where I come from, it's called a stocker.
And what do you do with that?
You chop weed,
The weed, yes.
Yeah.
It must be more sharp. Yeah,
like that,
Yeah.
or you turn the soil over.
Yeah. Okay,
You know,
okay.
you
Okay.
like that,
Ah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's, it
Yeah.
digs, it's good.
But here we have this one. This is a special 7. Voilà.
That's good, that's heavy.
This is
isn't it?
called a
Ooh.
bigot. A bigot.
A bigot.
Bigot, yeah. Here everybody has one.
Everyone has
Yeah,
a bigot.
yeah,
You see,
yeah.
in England, you
Yeah.
very rarely see
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Nice.
Typic from here.
It's heavy.
Yes,
Hard work.
yes. Hard work. It's quite a hard land, so it goes together. But this goes really well. This is a broken one, of course.
Yeah.
Like that.
Nicolas doesn't just grow strawberries. He cultivates everything, from potatoes to aubergines, via 15 different varieties of tomatoes, and it's all organic.
Do you grow all the vegetables, or do you have to buy some in?
We buy some in at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Because we grow most of our vegetables, but in the beginning of the season we have to buy a few because we don't have any plastic tunnel.
And what about in winter, when you have this very cold, harsh weather? Do you have enough vegetables for yourselves?
Oh yes, we have our potatoes, our poireaux.
Yeah,
Poireaux.
leeks.
We
Yeah.
eat a lot of soups.
Yeah.
Soups every day.
Yeah.
Midday in the evening.
Makes me
So,
hungry.
voilà,
I'm
voilà,
hungry,
voilà,
actually,
voilà.
to think about
And
it.
then we eat a little bit more of meat also in winter
Yeah.
to get a little bit fatter.
Yeah.
To pass the winter.
The way that Nicolas coaxes so much from this difficult soil and climate is truly impressive and seems to me to be the embodiment of modern paysan self-sufficiency. And then Agnès transforms it all into a pretty plateful.
Oh, that looks so beautiful.
Voilà. Let's have a small meal
Let's
after this walk
have a
in the garden. These are goat cheese
fantastic.
rolled in menthe. Voilà.
And the lovely flowers.
Voilà. Oh, there's souci,
Yeah.
a lot of soucis.
Yeah, marigold.
Bourrache,
Borage.
and
Rose.
this rose. Voilà.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Very good.
Okay.
Good.
The trend here, as in the UK, is for merging smaller farms to create larger ones, although more than a quarter of French farmers still own less than 15 acres. Most of Nicolas' neighbours grow just one thing, the speciality of the region. I go up the other side of the valley to meet his friend, Bruno, to take a look.
Bonjour. Vous avez des oignons.
Oui,
Les plus mieux oignons dans le monde entier, je crois.
le plus doux, on va dire, le
Ok.
plus doux. Voilà, donc cultivé sur des
Et
terrains.
cette région, c'est la spécialité pour les oignons?
Oui.
Pourquoi? Pourquoi?
Ben, c'est ancestral, c'est une culture qui est très très ancienne.
C'est le climat, le terroir.
Le climat, le terroir. Au départ, c'était un légume qui était cultivé pour la consommation, parce que c'était un légume qui se conservait très bien. Donc les gens, au départ, ils le cultivaient pour avoir un légume tout l'hiver.
Oui.
Voilà.
Oui, c'est tout l'oignon.
Tout.
Dans les terrasses.
Oui. Oui, oui.
Bon.
Voilà.
J'aime beaucoup des fleurs. C'est à vous?
Oui, oui, oui.
Qui le fait?
C'est les dames qui mettent un peu...
Qu'est-ce que c'est en français, dahlia? En anglais, on dit dahlia.
Dahlia.
C'est le même mot?
Oui.
Well, dahlia.
Dahlia. Ouais.
Bon, merci. Merci beaucoup.
Ben, c'est avec plaisir.
Ok, au revoir.
Bruno harvests his entire crop of onions by hand in August and sells them via a small local cooperative.
It's interesting what Bruno was saying, because he's the 5th generation of his family to grow onions here. And also, what I find amazing, oh, it's nice to hear a bell. That's the 6:05 bell. What I find amazing is that not only are onions produced in this very specific region that are acknowledged to be the finest in France. But also, they have no rotation. There have been onions on these terraces continuously for over 100 years. And they still grow wonderfully well.
I love the idea of terroir, that specific combination of place, soil and climate, which means that one location can produce onions distinct from anywhere else. And of course, it's not just onions.
This is really interesting. Here you've got strawberries from Carpentras and from the Ardèche, and then different variety there. Now, the English gardener is really familiar with growing different varieties of strawberry and choosing which one they want. But the English shopper tends to just buy strawberries. And the real difference with France is that the housewife, the chef, the consumer, they deliberately select the variety or the region that food comes from with the same care that we grow it in England. Those look particularly nice. Oui, c'est vraiment très parfumé.
Ah oui, c'est très parfumé.
Merci. C'est 2 euros?
2 euros.
Merci beaucoup. They're said to be exceptionally fragrant, and they really are. You know how with the strawberry, there's that moment of bliss when you realise that it's not just as good as you thought it was going to be, but a lot better.
This love of provenance and terroir is still alive in modern France. 26% of farms have disappeared in the last 10 years, mostly small holdings being absorbed by larger farms. And for these small farms, it can prove a lifeline. The Dordogne, for example, used to be a major tobacco growing area, but now farmers have had to adapt. The Boyer family in Kazakh, like many others, are using the land for a regional speciality. I've come to see Thierry Boyer in the old tobacco fields by the river.
Bonjour.
Hello.
Hello.
C'est l'asperge?
C'est l'asperge de Carsac, Carsac-Kayak.
Mais c'est bien produit. Où est-il? Ah, voilà. Ah, montez-moi.
Donc comment on coupe une asperge?
Oui.
Donc on plante,
Oui.
assez profond. On va toucher l'asperge.
Oui.
On la tient avec la main, on coupe et on lève.
And that's it.
On rebouche. Asperge blanche.
Oui.
Voilà.
Ça, c'est mieux que l'asperge verte. Oui.
C'est
différent.
C'est différent. Pour nous, c'est l'asperge qu'on mange
Oui.
dans le sud-ouest,
Oui.
en France. Il y a cette asperge dans le sud-ouest et dans le nord de la France. Par contre, le sud de la France,
Oui.
c'est plus asperge verte. Et l'Angleterre, apparemment.
Oui, oui, c'est vrai. Ça
On peut en trouver une autre. Hein.
Oui.
Là.
Ah,
Et
voilà.
là.
Bon.
Allez, à vous.
Merci. So we go in underneath on the side until I feel it. Oh, there it is. I missed. Voilà.
Good.
I have another go now.
These white asparagus are more expensive than our own green asparagus.
Merci. Okay, in here.
But the French love them and will pay accordingly.
Voilà. Pour dîner. Mais la terre, c'est très
souple. C'est des terres d'alluvion. Hein.
Oui.
Avant, ici, la rivière a dû passer.
Oui.
Et c'est ça, la terre est riche, très riche. Et très bonne, très bonne. Légère.
Light, drains well, rich. C'est parfait pour l'asperge.
Parfait, ici, parfait.
But what's also interesting about these asparagus is that they are organic, bio as the French call it, and the amount of bio production has more than doubled in the last 10 years.
Oh, probably a one-way road, but who cares?
There's one statistic which I find truly enviable. The French spend more time eating and drinking than anyone else in the Western world. So I want to see what happens when you marry the traditional values of self-sufficiency and respect for local varieties with modern organic production and a Michelin-starred restaurant. There is, however, a minor hitch. I've run out of cash to pay the ferryman.
Pardon, sorry. There's always something about going by ferry, even if you're just going across a little waterway, a river. It's exciting. It's an unmodern thing to do. It's an adventure. I don't know what you expect to happen at the other end, but it's different. Life is going to change somehow. And it's so short, I've got to get back in the car, else I'll be left stranded here and get into trouble. But that was fun. That was good.
Although I couldn't pay the fare, I was allowed across the River Rhône on my way to the Camargue. This is the dead-flat, marshy stretch of land that merges into the Mediterranean, famous for its wild rice and white horses. And I've come here to visit a restaurant with an unusually intimate relationship with its kitchen garden.
Now, this is the reason that I've come to the Camargue, because this restaurant, La Chassaignette, is bio, meaning it's organic. It grows all its own veg and was one of the first organic restaurants to get a Michelin star.
As the guests eat, they look out onto a garden that not only provides most of the ingredients for their meal, but it's also lovely.
Nice to see the cosmos. This is Cosmos Dazzler. And I actually, funnily enough, just before coming out here, planted mine out back home. They're nothing like as big, but look at the way that the new flower is that very rich, reddy colour, almost plum, and then it fades to a pink. It looks lovely, just scattered through the vegetables. I'm looking for Claude, the gardener. Claude, bonjour.
Bonjour.
Ça va?
Ça va et toi?
Oui, très bien.
Tu viens voir le jardin?
Oui.
Ah, c'est bien. Tu vas bien?
Oui.
Ça va?
Ah, ça va. Voilà des tomates.
Voilà les tomates.
À quel type de tomates?
Alors là, sur le jardin, je cultive environ 30 variétés. Oui.
Waouh!
Ouais. Tu vois, regarde, des tomates. Bien. Alors elles sont un peu déformées, mais le goût est.
Le goût, c'est le.
Le goût, c'est terrible, quoi. Ce sont des tomates qui pourraient mal se conserver. Il faut manger mûr sur place.
Oui.
Voilà, pour profiter vraiment de la qualité de la tomate.
See, what that has is it has a sort of tenderness to touch that you never get in an English tomato because it never gets that ripe. English tomatoes tend to be much firmer. And although it may look less than perfect, I can tell you, I just want to bite into that. I mean, the taste is fantastic. Ah, it's enormous.
Oh. Grosse cœur de bœuf.
That is a whopper. It's the size of a great big baking apple or a small melon. And of course, what you have is the warmth of the sun. A cold tomato has far less taste. So this smells of days of sunshine.
Tu vois la chair de la tomate.
The flesh.
Tu vois?
So the flesh here is really solid. There is no sort of wet, pippy section.
Ah.
Wait. See, it's got body. This is a muscular tomato. This has been in the weights room, pumping iron, and the result is, and it's like a watermelon in sort of scale. It's got a different texture now. It's very, very nice. It's lovely.
These tomatoes go from the vine to the kitchen in minutes. No food could be fresher.
Hello, Armand. Bonjour. How are you?
Good, very good.
Very good. So what are you cooking today?
Today we prepare fish with tomatoes.
Yeah.
So we have these tomatoes. And we confit in the olive oil.
So that's just olive oil there.
Olive oil and basil.
And the basil is from the garden, yeah?
Yes. Go ahead.
Ready? Okay. Superb. Superb.
Just with the fish with the olive oil like this. This tomato gonna be used as a seasoning of the fish.
Does it matter which variety you use for this?
Today, the noir de crimée we use because we want not too acid, but concentrate and a lot of density in the tomato. Okay.
So you choose your variety for the dish.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I also prepare some onions.
So you just, so that is all, so far all from the garden?
Everything's from the garden.
Right. So when you organize your menu, do you see what's in the garden?
Exactly. It's the, we can say it's a garden who dictate what's gonna be in the card. Okay.
Yeah.
The idea is to have a restaurant who helps the garden and not the garden for the restaurant.
But that's unusual, isn't it?
Yes, it's unusual.
Rare. I mean, as a gardener, someone who grows food, that is wonderful. Because when you're cooking at home, you go into the garden, you see what's good, you gather it, and you cook it.
Yeah. So it's a garden who decides what's gonna be for you.
And did you at home? Did your parents grow vegetables?
No, but my grandparents used to sell vegetables on the market.
Okay.
So vegetables is always a part of my life.
So that's very good. I'll let you get on because I know you're going to be very, very busy. But thank you very much. It's fascinating.
This place is a perfect example of how the directness of paysan culture can be maintained and celebrated without compromising the highest culinary standards. It's been a fascinating journey, from the self-sufficiency of the nuns to the embellishment of Val Joannis and the uncomplicated flavors of the Cevennes. And I've seen how the French love of order and control turns pruning into a fine art and vegetables into formal bedding. And there is no doubt that the French passion for food goes hand in hand with a pride in terroir and an appreciation that choosing the particular and specific will always translate into the best you can eat.
C'est bon.
But it's time to pay a visit to the French kitchen garden that I think combines all these qualities into one triumphant performance. It is in Berry, which is in La France Profonde, right in the middle of the country.
Here we go.
I think that this place succeeds in marrying the virtues of a high level of productivity, theatrical and playful display, and the French delight in good food, all in one glorious garden. The potager at the ancient monastery of Prieuré Notre-Dame d'Auxon is only 20 years old. But it takes its inspiration from the site and the tenets of medieval monastic gardens, where everything should be both useful and beautiful.
This is a block of wheat growing in the lawn. Now you might think that that is quirky, fun, a little bit eccentric, but actually it's very, very practical. Like everything else in this garden, it's grown to eat. It'll be harvested, and the grains will be ground and made into bread. And there's no reason why you can't grow anything edible in a garden. There isn't an area that's suitable for farming and an area that's suitable for gardening. The two can come together. And I think that gives an energy to a garden. If you're really going to use it, you're really going to grow it as well as you can. But here, whether it's eaten or not, everything, down just to protection around the crop, down to the little snails on top of the bamboos, must look good.
The owner, Patrick Taravella, is an architect turned garden designer, and he's asked me to lunch.
Oh, there we go. Lovely, that looks very beautiful.
I hope you like the vegetables.
I love vegetables. And all these from the garden?
All is from the garden, yes.
How did you begin the garden here? Perhaps why did you begin the garden here?
The first summer, it was so warm, so hot, that I say we have to plant a tree because we need shade. It was everywhere was rain, we had no roof, no shade everywhere, and we want shade. And 1 tree, 2 trees, 3 trees, and if we make a garden, just like that.
And you'd never made a garden before?
No, never. Never, never. It's my first garden.
So, why did you want to make a garden that included food and vegetables and fruit?
Because for me, a flower, I like the flower on the tree, because I say there is a fruit after.
Yeah.
Not the flower to cut, to put in, on the table. I can do, but it's not my interest.
Patrick now runs the converted monastery as a small hotel. And everything that is grown in the garden is served to the guests as it comes into season. There isn't a gardener that doesn't use support of some kind. I don't think I've ever seen a garden where the support systems look so good. It's not particularly original, but the way that it's all put together actually is really inspiring and exciting. So this, for example, these are tomatoes. And there are wigwams. There's this nice sort of tent-like structure, which I'm going to copy. A roller coaster lattice work there, all to support tomatoes. There's a playfulness about it that I like, because it's all practical, it's all standard stuff, but there's a little spark to it. Although the garden is not particularly big, it feels big because it's subdivided into dozens of compartments, and it's easy to get lost with peepholes and views and a maze of hedge-lined paths. Now, there's a reference to medieval symbolism in all this, following a tortuous road to salvation, but it is above all a brilliant manipulation of space. Space is constricted, it's expanded, you're led down certain alleys that lead nowhere, there are dead ends, you have to retrace your steps, there are little windows, there are doors. All this makes it very lively and energetic and exciting, because you don't know what's round the corner. I think this garden weaves together its different strands brilliantly. You've got the monastic element, where monks grow food with devotion. You've got serious food production, which is served to paying members of the public to a very high standard. And you've got a garden that is just purely sets out to look beautiful. And they all come together. I love the way nothing is wasted. Everything, be it a rose or a cabbage, is grown with great seriousness. But the tone and the way the garden looks and feels has a real playful element. It's elegant and it's useful. Now, surely, that's the definition of a potager. Next time, I'll be looking at gardens of great French artists and considering the question of whether a garden can be a work of art in itself. My goodness.